And you know, we mentioned some examples the other night about God being the God of the impossible. You know, just being a light in the world is an impossibility, but it affects every area of our lives. And very often when we begin to pray and when God begins to work to execute His plan, not ours, but His plan, the first thing He's got to do is to get us to the starting line. What's the starting line? I can do nothing without Him. And most of the time, that's not where we're at. We're not even ready to run the race. We're not even at the starting gate. We're not even dressed. We don't have our track shoes on. He's got a lot of work to get us off the couch and up to the starting line, ready to say, okay, Lord, I'm yours. I'll do what you want, but I know that I can't do any of this in myself. Well, it seems like we don't learn that except by experience somehow. Maybe you do. I've never been able to. God has to put us in experiences where He proves this principle to the point where we know we can look back and say, I was in an impossible situation and God was faithful and He brought me through. I found strength I did not have. There was no way. Every direction I looked, every door was closed and the wall reached to heaven. There was no way that situation could have been remedied. But it was. God worked, didn't He? How many times has God deliberately put His people in situations like that so that they would learn, so that His name would be glorified? So many things God accomplishes to bring reality to bear upon our own lives and our own circumstances. You know, we pointed out the example of the Israelites being led. Now, how did they get next to the sea? Well, I just told you, didn't I? I kind of tipped my hand. They were led there, weren't they? That wasn't put together very, very, very well, but you know, you're supposed to leave a little bit of guessing there. But anyway, they were led there, weren't they? God deliberately brought them. How many of you remember the movie, was it Exodus or Ten Commandments is what I'm thinking of. Ten Commandments. And Pharaoh's comment shows you the wisdom of the world. When he realized, he decided after he'd let the people go, and then he got all stirred up, I think by his queen and mocking him. And so he gets his army and men, he's going to go out there and show them. And then he suddenly looks at their circumstances and said, boy, the God of Israel is sure a poor general to bring them to a place and leave them no retreat. Well, that's human reasoning, isn't it? But our God is a perfect general. He knows exactly how to lead us, and He is never stymied by such things. There is nothing that He cannot do. First place, he could have gone like that, and the Egyptian army would have disappeared, as far as that's concerned. I mean, what kind of limitation does an infinite God have? None. He just wants us to understand that and to come to a place where we are willing to let Him work things out and do it His way. That's often our problem. This is, God, I need you to do this. And here's a great way. I'd like to suggest that you do it this way. Well, He delights in ignoring such suggestions and surprising us so that we know it was Him. I mean, we can't even rely on our own suggestions, our own wisdom and such things. God He never does things the same way twice, does He? Seems like. We try to reduce everything He does to a pattern. Okay, now I know how He works. I got the formula. Let's apply this to everybody. We go around telling everybody, this is how God's going to solve your problem. No, it isn't. God's got something. I mean, He just isn't limited by our way of thinking. And of course, you know what happened, how God opened the sea. But He could have brought them out in a lot less dramatic way. But all of history remembers what He did and the greatness of His power. And you follow all the way through Scripture. You see story after story after story after story after story after story where the same principle works. Jehoshaphat wasn't just attacked by a marauding band where he could just send out a few people and say, take care of this while we sit here and have, play games. The army that came against him was so overwhelming, there was simply no way. I mean, all he could do was throw up his hands and say, there is no natural way, no strategy we can employ, nothing we can do about this circumstance. It's out of our hands. Well, how did it get to that place? Did God slip up? Was God looking the other way and the devil slipped one in? No. God wanted to glorify himself in the eyes of the people. He's the one who allowed that heathen king to mount up this immense army and to come thinking, oh, I'm going to seize all they have. That's a beautiful land that God's given his people, but it's going to be mine because we have superior forces with which to fight. Well, he didn't know who he was up against, did he? But Jehoshaphat knew what to do, didn't he? He didn't plan and strategize and say, well, we're going to go down fighting. We're, to get the cheerleaders going. Let's have a rally here, and we're just going to, whatever we do, we're going to go down fighting. No, he didn't. He said, God, you're the one who gave us this land. We're here because of your promises. We're here to glorify your name. Oh, God, you see what they're doing. They're coming to cast us out of your... You just put all the responsibility back on God. Said, God, we don't know what to do. Our eyes are on you. Wouldn't that be a good strategy for us every day? We just think that applies to the big stuff. It applies to the little stuff. You think God could use us more if we learn more of this in practical application? I believe he could. But we know the story of what he did. I mean, he didn't even give them a brilliant strategy. He gave them something that looked utterly ridiculous. Now, all you choir members, how would you like to go out in front of the army? And not with no sword now. You don't get a sword. You get to march straight toward a 1,000,000-man army and you're going to sing. What a great strategy. But it worked. It wasn't the singing that did it. It was God who honored their faith and went before them. And I mean, there was nothing there when they got there. It took them 3 days to gather up all the treasure and all the bounty that the Lord had in mind. He turned that thing completely around into a blessing. God can do what he needs to do, folks. But when you start praying, this is the part that I wanted to get to from what Carl said. When we start praying and saying, oh God, make me more fruitful, make me more effective as a Christian, teach me your ways, look out, he's going to. But we need to learn not to be dismayed when he answers our prayer by how he answers our prayer. When he puts you in a distressing, difficult, impossible situation, he's done it so that you will learn to let go, stop trying, and trust him. And I'll tell you, faith will grow. And God's name will be glorified. The other example we used the other night in prayer meeting was Gideon. And they were attacked by the Midianites, and I think they were under the thumb of the Midianites, actually, had been for a long time. And God had purposed to deliver Israel because there were some people that cried out to him. He raised up a common, ordinary man. Angel, I think that was the one, isn't it, where the angel came to him and said, "Thou mighty man of valor." I'm sure he was looking around wondering who was standing behind him. But God can say that about us, not because of who we are, but because of who he is. Just like the fruit doesn't happen in the vine, in the branch, by the strength of the branch. It happens because of the life that's in the vine. And that's true of us as well. So Gideon was sent out with the armies of Israel, sent out the word, everybody come, we're going to battle here. And I believe it was 32,000, if I remember correctly. Don probably remembers that better than I do. But anyway, 32,000 people showed up, and you can almost see the wheels begin to turn. Okay, now we got a good bunch here. We're going to take care of business.